All right, welcome to another edition of the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Show Chap. We're gonna hit the thing, and then we're gonna go on with it. Let's talk about this loss to the Buccaneers. All right, cool. All right, welcome into the Detroit Lions News Podcast. Obviously, I didn't think we'd be doing it after a loss today. I don't really think a lot of people thought they would do it after a loss today. I thought they would play a lot better than they did last week. That was not the case. They didn't even come out as good as they did last week because no matter what you want to say about that game today, in whatever way you're going to talk about that game, there's something that there's a lot of things we got to talk about, but there's a couple of things that glare at us. So you remember at the end of the Rams game against the Lions Rams, they ran it down the field on the Rams, right? This time around against the Buccaneers, which I know their secondary is beat up, right? But midway through that game, Vita Vea, who is their best run defender on the line, he went out with a knee injury. Kalasia Kancey, who is also on that line, he was out before the game. Why did the Detroit Lions pass 55 times? That don't make any sense to me. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you talk about it, passing 55 times in a game with the Detroit Lions offensive line, with the running backs that they have, with the injuries that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have on that side of the ball, that's coaching malpractice. And if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I know Dan Campbell screwed up the field goal, but this game is squarely on Ben Johnson because throwing for 55 times, I don't care who you are. When you throw 55 times as a team, you're pretty much going to lose that game. You're not balanced enough. You're getting outshined. So let's look at passing. They had 56 pass attempts. Jared Goff and obviously Jack can't, if you count Jack Fox's pass attempt, which was pretty crazy. They ran the ball 27 times for 139 yards. So they outpassed more than they ran the ball. All right. It is what it is. Like this is just what just the raw numbers of it. You're looking at it and you're going, okay, Jared Goff throws 55 times. He throws 2 picks, no interceptions. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, runs the ball 13 times. Dave Montgomery, 11 times for 35 yards. So they had a run game. But again, coaching malpractice. Like, I don't care. I don't know what happened to these coaches going back to the start of the year. But Sam Laporta not getting the ball is malpractice. St. Brown, obviously last week. You obviously won last week, but this week you didn't because, let's be honest, you totally outperformed yourself. You put your defense in a bad position. It's amazing to me that if we look at the time of possession, these are the stats. So obviously you had first downs 26-14. Detroit had 83 total plays, 47 total plays for the Buccaneers, 11 drives. So they both had the same amount of drives, but Detroit had more plays. Unbelievable. You passed way more than them, and you gained less yards per pass. Turnovers. You obviously had 2 turnovers. Your time of possession was better than theirs, and you still mustered up only 16 points. And look, when you're 1-7 in the red zone, you are going to be at a major disadvantage. You just are. Like, you cannot be 1-7, 1-4-7 in the red zone. If you're like that, you're going to lose games. That's just the way it is. So when I look at the Lions today, and I'm interested to hear people's comments, they can comment below or whatever. We're going to get into some more stuff. But when I get into why the Lions looked as bad as they did today, they were disproportionate. They passed way too much. They didn't run as much. And to be honest, the red zone issues are becoming a real thing because if I go back last week, the red zone wasn't good that against the Rams either. So it's a bunch of issues into one, and it's not just one game. It's not just one game. You know, a lot of people will say this is just one game. I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that because if we go back to the first 2 weeks, last week and this week, the same issues are standing still. Jared Goff hasn't played as good as he's played in the past. St. Brown, he might be hurt. Who knows? But Ben Johnson, his offense, they look disconjointed. They don't look, it doesn't look on par. They look easy to figure out. And if the Lions don't get it together, they go into a buzzsaw next week in Arizona, a place that they usually do not win in Arizona. And they're going to go there and they're going to play Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray are winning 20, I think it was 24-3 last time I checked the score. So there are no easy weeks off in the NFL. And if you look around the NFL, today was a weird day. There was a lot of favorites that lost. There was a lot of underdogs that won outright. Crazy day. But in my opinion, if this isn't fixed by next week, not fixed going against Seattle, who's played a lot. They played pretty good football in Seattle. Then you go play Dallas. You have to get it together right now. Like right now, this is where it's going to be key for the Lions to figure out where they're going to go from. So if you look at the quarterback comparisons, Baker Mayfield, 12 for 19, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception, 90. His rating was 90.9. Jared Goff, 34 for 55, 307 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions. His quarterback rating was 61.7. I don't care who you are. If your quarterback rating is 61.7, unless you're the Chicago Bears, you're not winning that game. Period. And Jared Goff this whole year has not looked good. So he has to get his stuff together. If we look at the running back comparisons, obviously Jahmyr Gibbs had 84 yards. Bucky Irving was their top rusher. The Detroit Lions, this is what pisses me off, okay? The Lions outgained the Buccaneers twofold. The total yards was 463 to 216. You doubled up on them. And still you couldn't win this game. I don't care who you are. You can talk about Jared Goff. You can talk about St. Brown. You can talk about the defense. When you're in the red zone and you don't get points, that is a direct correlation to your coaches. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, time to get it together because that wasn't good enough. That's not going to be good enough to win the playoffs. That's not going to be good now. And last week, if we go back to last week, what were they in the red zone? I'm gonna go check. Red zone. Oh, it doesn't show up. Oh, they were 2 for 4 last week. The Rams were 2 for 5 last week. So if you put it all together, they were 2 for 4 last week. They're 1 for 7 today. Quick math. They're 3 for 11. That's not good enough, guys. That red zone offense is not good enough. 3 for 11 ain't gonna win you many ball games, and it ain't gonna win you some games against top-notch competition. And I think you could look at the two teams that you played, the Buccaneers and the Rams, and you could say they're playoff teams. But at the same time, the Buccaneers and the Rams, you should be able to be better in the red zone, especially with the talent that you have. There's no excuse, none whatsoever. And people can put the blame on Jared Goff. That's fine. But you got to put the blame on the coaches because this red zone offense obviously isn't good enough. It just isn't. We got some comments from people. Terrible coaching. Sorry, last year was a fluke. I don't think it's a fluke. Here's the thing. They're not playing up to snuff. I mean, if you look at teams across the league, whether you look at the Bengals, whether you look at the Browns, well, the Browns are ass anyways. But, Deshaun Watson isn't helping this case. The Baltimore Ravens are 0-2 right now. So, I mean, it just goes to show you in this league, and things can change quick. And people do get better and they do get worse. But I think that the Lions, this is more of a, they're not coaching the right way. They're not calling the right plays because last year they had the same talent and nothing was different. and their talent. And a lot of people talked about their talent outweighing their coaching. I could say with their way that they played in the third quarter last year to the way they're playing red zone offense to this year, this is where you got your little issue here. MJ says terrible quarterback play 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, Jared Goff hasn't been good. When you have 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions in 2 weeks, that's not good enough. But when I look at the offense, let me just put it this way. I went back on the offense, especially last week. I was at the game, so I didn't there was a lot of things that I could not see that I did see while I was watching the tape. And one of the things I saw from that game against the Rams was there was a lot of plays that were called where the players were in the same area. Now, it didn't matter because they won the game, but it did matter because I seen the same things today. There was things that were being called where you had Laporta in the same area, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown in the same area, either J-Mo in the same area. Those things can kind of be misconstrued. You know, a lot of people talk about the offense, or they talk about Jared Goff. The one interception, I'm not going to fault him on. That was a total defensive pass interference. The second one, pretty bad. He almost threw 3 or 4, if you want to be completely honest. He has not been good. But what I can say is the offensive coordinator, the play calling has not been good either. It's been pretty brutal. Like I said, when your quarterback is Jared Goff and you throw it 55 times, I want you to put this in perspective. I went back and looked. How many times has Patrick Mahomes threw 55 times in a game? Do you know how many times in his career he threw 55 times in a game? Once. And that was against Jared Goff in that game against where it was the Rams and the Rams and the Chiefs in the Coliseum. Patrick Mahomes has only thrown 55 times once. Today, we did it with Jared Goff. There's not many quarterbacks that should be throwing 55 times, especially the best teams in the league. They don't throw 55 times in a row in a game. The fact that you threw 55 times in a game when Vita Vea was hurt, when Kalijah Kancey was out, that tells you everything you need to know about this coach staff. Period. Bad day today for the coaches. Bad day. They did not have a good day. Guy Joseph Richmond says first half crucial gaff and red zone play calling bad. I totally agree. And you know, it's funny you mentioned that. Dan Campbell did say he did say to the press, he said, Dan Campbell fighting back tears at the podium. I asked for improvement from last week, and we did improve. And their coach cost them. The head coach cost them this one 100% on me. It's not okay. So, you know, Coach Dan Campbell is saying it's his fault. I think it's all of the coaching staff's fault. If there's any coach that kind of had a great game, it's Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn held a good team to, 20 points, under 300 yards. It's a pretty good day. And I can't believe Hutchinson's day was ruined by just insufficient red zone offense. This was a day that the Lions really should have won, because when you get 4-5 sacks from one of your best defensive players, you should win that game. And the fact that they didn't is kind of shaky. I mean, I get where we're coming from, but at the same time, like, it can't be done. Wanted to hit on this. So Dan Campbell said he doesn't believe Amon-Ra St. Brown's injury is long term. Also said Ennis Rakestraw suffered a hamstring injury in warm-up. All right. Well, all right. Anyways, so that's the way it is. The Lions, they lost this game. They shouldn't have lost this game. That's my opinion. I don't care who what you think. I know there's a lot of people in the comments that are saying something about this game. Martin, let's start with Kenneth. Kenneth says horrible play calls. Ben should get his ass cussed out. Don't disagree. Martin Leston, he says playoffs looking to the next 8 games. They will be out of playoff contention by mid-season the way they're playing now. I don't think they're going to continue playing this way, but if they do, you're right, they will. They're not going to go far. because this is just simply unacceptable offense. It's unacceptable play calling, and it's unacceptable. Just the offense in general just is unacceptable. I mean, it just is. And the defense has saved your ass twice, and today you couldn't repay the favor. We couldn't run against them. We were played. We Deontay Shaw. We couldn't run against them. We were played them the past 2 times and couldn't run. Coaches was a part of it, but Goff is the main reason. Whenever Goff doesn't have a solid run game, he plays like ass. It happens every time he can't carry. Here's the thing. You say that, but last week we had Lions had 163 yards rushing, and Jared Goff threw. Let me go through this. Jared Goff threw 28 times. Okay, let's go. Let's go to this week. Jared Goff throws 55 times, and you run for. Damn it. Jared Goff throws 55 times, and this time you run for. God damn it. You ran for 139 yards, so you still ran good. Like there was still this team was running pretty damn good. So the fact that he didn't have a run game is total crap because Baker Mayfield had 79 yards rushing, and they still won the game. The Lions outgained the Buccaneers by they doubled up their yardage. So the fact that Jared Goff he didn't play this good game. Jared Goff should never threw 55 times. Let's play it where it is. Jared Goff should never have thrown 55 times. It shouldn't happen. Last week they carried the ball 40 times. This week they carried the ball 27 times. Tell me what's wrong. They were running the ball at a good clip. I mean, if you look at it like this, their yards per his average was Jahmyr Gibbs was averaging 6.5 per rush. Dave Montgomery was averaging 3.2 per rush. The fact that the run game didn't play good, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. They ran the ball at a good clip. And to be honest, you can't pass 55 times in one game. That's coaching malfeasance. And I look at players that I look at Laporta. Like Laporta was targeted, he's targeted 3 times, 2 catches for 13 yards. Should have been a lot more. Jahmyr Gibbs 7 for 22 yards. It seemed like I want people's opinions. Did it not seem like the Lions were always passing to the middle? They were always passing. They weren't. There was one play to JMO, and it was a great play. And then they went away from it. They started going to the middle. They started going to the side. They started making these stupid plays. Like it felt like there was no flow to the game. You see what I'm trying to say? Like it felt like there was no flow. So it is what it is. But I don't believe. Look, Jared Goff has not been good. Ben Johnson has not been good. St. Brown had one good game and one bad game. Outside of that, even if you look at the offensive line, like their efficiency last week was pretty brutal, guys. It was pretty brutal. I think there was only one player. No player was at 100 pass block efficiency, which is rare out of the norm. But there's been some issues at pass protection too. So that's what I look at right there. Brian Edward Brumfield says, we played against 2 very good teams, very well coached team who were out for revenge. Splitting them is about right. You know what? You're not wrong. Obviously they wanted revenge. When I think about these 2 teams, I do think there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And when I look at the Buccaneers, especially with missing Antoine Winfield, especially missing Kalasia Kancey and Vita Vea in the second half, it's a game you got to win. You usually don't get those breaks. Vita Vea is a good defender for the Buccaneers. Kalasia Kancey is one of their better players, and Antoine Winfield is all-pro safety. So when you have those guys down, you're expected to make take the next step, and they did not do that. Uh, Ryan Stu says Goff is trash. It's whatever. Go play it. Goff didn't do bad at all. Tanner White says Goff didn't do bad at all. Defense just know if he goes deep, it'll float to play underneath. We couldn't run or pass short too while screens were gone as well. See, I think everyone's getting it wrong. Like they look at Goff and they go, okay, Goff he was the reason why they didn't win, or there was a reason the play didn't work, or whatever the case may be. The issue I see, and if you go get an NFL Plus account, you go get the premium account, and you go watch the coach's film. I think it's like $15. Okay, so you can go watch coach's film, and you can see exactly what's going on. And when I watch the coach's film, it's not that Jared Goff is not seeing the right reads or whatever the case may be. He hasn't been good at all. I'm not going to make no mistake about that. But it just seems like they're running players into each other. Like it just seems like they're the crossing routes which gets me to two things. They're running crossing routes or they're running across each other, and the play's got to be thrown. The ball's got to be thrown because it's probably getting pressured, which could be the case. Because if you look at last week, last week wasn't a good week for the pass blocking, and this week I haven't looked at the stats yet. Pro Football Focus, I don't think they posted it yet. Let me see if they have. I'd be interested about that. But I would be interested about that. But yeah, you can just go back to it and you're like, all right, well, they got to play a lot better. Like I don't see Goff being the main issue. I think there's a ton of issues to this team. One, the offensive line has not played a good game yet. Last week was brutal. This week seemed to be brutal. And as bad as Goff has been, cool, but the team has to be better. Let's see what we got. All right. Tanner says, but we usually establish the run. I think we lost this game on the offensive line. That's what that's what I keep trying to say. Last week, if you went back to last week, I pulled the stats up. I'll pull them up again. This was last week, okay? Pass blocking efficiency. This was last week. Let me get the comment away. But this will prove your point. Frank Ragnow was at 98.4% last week. Penei Sewell 96.9 for Glasgow, 95.3 for Zeitler, 93.7 for Decker. And when you turn this into how many pressures were given up, you had 3 by Decker, 2 by Zeitler, 2 by Sewell, 1 by Glasgow, 1 by Ragnow. And then obviously sacks given up, Decker and Zeitler both gave up 1, but Ragnow, Glasgow, and Sewell gave up 0. It's interesting when you look at Goff's stats though, because when he's kept clean, his stats are actually pretty horrible. When he's under pressure, his stats are actually pretty good. His completion percentage is up about 10%. He has 1 more touchdown. His yards per attempt are more. It just goes on. And I'm trying to find the last one. Oh, here's the last one. When blitzed, Goff drop back percentage 78.1%. His completion percentage is 59.1, 21.9, 83.3, and he's better when he's not blitzed. So maybe teams are starting to look at that and starting to take notice. But that's what I look at with this team. Like I don't sit here and say much. I know in the comments, Brian says Goff is the main issue for sure. I'm going to say this with all due certainty. Let's put it this way. Goff isn't the main issue, because if he was the main issue, you at least would be 3 for 7 in the red zone, but you're not. You for some reason, every drive stalled in the red zone. You had one where you got the touchdown in the red zone. 1 for 7 isn't good enough. And we go back to last week, 2 for 4. So over a 2-game stretch, you're 3 for 11 in the red zone. You do 2 games. You go look at that percentage after a while, that's bottom of the league. That's on coaching. That's on the offensive line. It's on everybody. It's not just on the quarterback. If we're going to be completely honest, it's more on Ben Johnson. And this is something I've been saying for a while now. I know they have their own opinions about Ben Johnson, how good he is and all that stuff like that. He is a good offensive coordinator. I give him all due, but the third quarters are pretty brutal. And now you're starting to see that the red zone is pretty brutal. And last year it was the same damn thing. If we remember correctly, through their first 4 games, the Lions' offense really struggled in the red zone. They got better as the season went on, but they were struggling in the red zone. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna go check how much it is, but I think at one point they were like 2 for 21 in the red zone. So we'll have to see what it is. Tanner says, I really believe Zeitler shouldn't be here. Look, Zeitler he was an upgrade over Jonah Jackson. Let's just put it that way. Jonah Jackson was responsible for 43% of pressures last year at the left guard position. And so that's why Zeitler's here. And that's why Jonah Jackson went to LA. Like Detroit was not going to pay him what he wanted for giving up 41% of the pressures. Anne Marie Nelson says, Goff on vacation today, not a good day. Next week we up. Well, you better be up because you go to Arizona and you see what they're doing to the Rams, 24-3. Last time I checked, let me check again. Yeah, it's now 31-3. Arizona against the Rams. So again, you got another tough game coming up next week that you didn't think was going to be tough, and it's going to be a tough one. Because I don't know. I know you guys are I know all of you are Lions fans, but I can't remember a time where Detroit's went into Arizona and actually won a game. Even when they were good, they had good teams. They still struggled in Arizona for whatever reason. Tanner says Goff is a top 10 quarterback. It's only week 2. We will be fine. He still has 370 yards and yes, 2 interceptions, but we have to establish a run early. I have a feeling the coaches tried something new today by playing a spread and tried to air it out. You know what? You're right. You're right. I listened to Dan Campbell after the game on 97 to Ticket. He said they were trying to, get some completions going, trying to get the pass game going. And it feels like they really outcoached themselves, to be honest. Like if you think about it for a second, like when you throw 55 times, like I go back, I keep harping back to this, but when you throw 55 times, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has thrown once with 55 times. Once. And they threw 55 times today. The run game was churning. It was doing a good job. And Vita Vea was out. Calais Cansey didn't even play. And you didn't even run the ball once. I mean, you run the ball sometimes, but you didn't run the ball enough. I thought that the Lions should have really focused in on the run game. I thought it was malpractice, to be honest. I felt like they could have ran at will again, like they did against the Rams in the overtime period, because Vita Vea being out is a huge deal, very huge deal. And the fact that Lions coaching staff didn't even kind of figure it out. I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know about that. Kevin Zimmer says letting Reynolds walk is looming. He was the third guy Goff rallied to on a pinch. Yeah, you know what? I keep saying it. I'll say it again. Josh Reynolds was a huge piece of the puzzle for Detroit. I don't really think they replaced that third wide receiver until Goff gains trust with another third wide receiver. I don't think you're really going to see who's going to be the third wide receiver. I mean, we all hoped it would be Khalif Raymond. We all hoped it would be Isaiah Williams, who didn't play today, or Sam Laporta, but Sam Laporta has been missing. I don't know what's going on with this offense. But even if Josh Reynolds was here, I guarantee you, I don't think they would be even targeting him. That's my opinion. Tanner Wyatt, where was DJ Reader? He seemed he disappeared today. Well, Tanner, he was a big reason Hutch got a lot of sacks, because he was getting double teamed all day, and that's what his job is to do. His job is to get double teamed. That's what his job is. It's not to get sacks. It's not to be It's about to be. He has to be disruptive. That's what he's supposed to be, and he's supposed to be a guy that offensive lines are gonna have to count. They're gonna have to give 2 people right to DJ Reader. Like your center, your guard, they're gonna have to go to DJ Reader. So he opens up a little bit of lanes. You've seen how good of a push that the defensive line was getting all day. And if DJ Reader is there and healthy, Hutch is gonna eat all season. That's what happens with DJ Reader. That's why DJ Reader is so huge. And if I look at DJ Reader, like he didn't have any. Let me see if he had any tackles. No, I don't think he did. No, I don't think he did. But that's his job. I mean, Hutch had 4.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, a forced fumble. Uh, the guy he plays next to, Levi Onwuzurike, he had a half a sack, 4 tackles, and 1 forced fumble. The guy he plays next to, Lee McNeil, had 1 solo tackle, 1 tackle for a loss. So altogether, like this guy was responsible for a lot of the portion of the defense doing as good as they did today. That's what DJ Reader does. All right, let's get to some more stuff. I wanted to get to the passing chart. This is Goff's passing chart. Obviously, 34 for 55, 307 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His chart is just there's some good deep shots, but see how just look up the middle. Okay, just look in the middle. How many times are you going to throw up the middle? Like you could literally take about maybe 14, 13 and pinch him away, and that's right up the middle. That's what I'm saying. The offensive coordinator hasn't. That's on the offensive coordinator. It's kind of becoming redundant, but when you pass like they do, and you don't, and you're passing so much up the middle, like eventually teams are gonna kind of like squeeze down on it and make you pass somewhere else. All right, but that is what it is. It was just a game today that wasn't good enough. So, but my thoughts about this game today is very simple. I mean, as we've talked through it with some of the people in the comment section, as we talk through it with some of the people that are commenting back, really appreciate you guys for the uh the conversation. But when you talk about what did I expect from this game, or what do I want to see from this game? Well, obviously when you talk about the offensive line, I didn't think the offensive line has been good in 2 weeks. So that's 1. 2, offensive play calling. I feel like the offensive play calling when they get in the red zone is a real issue. I just when you're 3 for 11 through the first 2 weeks of the season, if you keep that up, you're going to be one of the worst red zone teams in the NFL, and that's just not acceptable. With all the talent that you have, there is no reason under any circumstance that you should be below. You should be below 60% on the red zone. That's my opinion. With the talent that this team has, there's no reason that you should be below 60%. And when I look at Goff, he's got to play a lot better. Obviously, when you have 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions, that's not good enough. That's not good enough to get it done. And we'll see what's going on with St. Brown. I mean, obviously, Coach Campbell said that he doesn't expect it to be a long-term injury, but that's something that we got to kind of figure out. But all in all, like I don't see this as a wake-up call. I don't see this as a game that was like going to alter their season. I look at the Buccaneers as potentially going to win the NFC South. I think they are the best team in the NFC South through 2 weeks. And when they play the New Orleans Saints, that'll be a really good game because the Saints just went into Dallas and absolutely obliterated them. So that'll be a fun game, Bucs and Saints. But I look around the NFL today. The Ravens are 0-2. They shouldn't have lost. They lost to the Raiders. The Chargers won. That's not shocking. Green Bay won with Malik Willis. Did anybody under planet Earth think that the Packers would have won a game with Malik Willis? Well, they did. Cleveland beat Jacksonville, so Jacksonville is 0-2. The 49ers got lost to Minnesota, which is crazy because Minnesota is 2-0 now. And the Jets, they beat the Tennessee Titans. The Washington Commanders beat the New York Giants. So it was a kind of a this is kind of a typical week in the NFL. Like, you got to expect the unexpected, and unfortunately, you were one of those teams that was a favorite, and you just got. That's just the way it is. And when you looked at the spread this week, it was 7.5, and I seen all these spreads that were just they were too much. A lot of touchdown spreads, a lot of heavy favorites. And you see what happened today. I mean, the heavy favorite in the Dallas, they lost. Baltimore lost. Detroit lost. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of the casinos are really, really happy right now. We got some comments. Goff has to play better. I totally agree with you. He does have to play better. I also have to call the offensive game plans better. Let's see. Goff was off and way off. We don't disagree. I think the offense in general has been off. If you want the total honest opinion, even if you say Goff has been off, I look at the offensive line, not as good. The offensive play calling, not as good. There's been several times where they kind of play their way into a punt situation, a 3-and-out situation. I mean, last week they got away with it, but this week they didn't. That's the way it goes. And the coaching staff needs to take a long, deep, hard look at what they're putting on the field and the plays that are calling, because in my opinion, none of them really showed up and showed a chance. Joe says first and 12 yards for the win. Run the ball. No flare out passes. They didn't work late in the game. A wasted win. Agreed. Because Matthew Lure says the same thing. He says coin flip away from being 0-2, not playing like a Super Bowl contender. Stop making excuses. No one's making excuses. No one's making excuses. Not one person is. But if we're going to be completely honest, not playing good enough. That's clear. Their offensive play calling is not good enough, especially in the red zone. You're 3 for 11 in the last 2 games. Quarterback hasn't been good. Your offensive line hasn't been good. I mean, we went over the pressure given up. I mean, there's so much pressure that's been given up by this line. It's not even like the same offensive line. Like, that's just the way it goes. So it's a complete shit show on the offensive side. Like, I expected way more from the offense, but yet the defense is actually playing pretty well. I like the way they played last week. I like the way they played this week. And unfortunately, the offense has cost them 1 week now. And if Matt says, if they didn't get that coin flip, who's to say that they aren't 0-2? Because they really could be 0-2 right now. Like, if we're gonna be honest, like, they could be 0-2. They didn't play good last week. They got lucky to win. They got lucky the coin flip went their way. But if you think last week, right? Matthew Stafford gets the ball in the overtime. Do you think the Lions off defense is going to stop him? And then furthermore, the Lions offense could score because, look, last week was something. I thought Stafford played out of his mind, but that's just the way it goes. So it is what it is. Well, bro, yeah. Look, I want to say that I'm shocked by a loss. Unfortunately, I'm not shocked by a loss. The way that they played last week, they were lucky to win. The way they played this week, they were really they deserved to lose, especially the coaching malpractice that happened in the red zone at the end of the end of the first half. Just not good coaching. And Jared Goff not playing good quarterback right now. The offensive line not playing good as offensive line. Like, I don't see one area on this offense I could be proud of. Jameson Williams, that's it. Jameson Williams and the run game, that's it. The rest of these guys have to get it together, because I know Ben Johnson is the guy that everyone loves and thinks that he's going to be the greatest head coach in the world, and that he's the one that is the reason for the renaissance of the Lions. But Ben Johnson has had issues in the third quarter. Now, I'm wondering if these defensive coordinators are starting to see, what do we do in the third quarter against the Detroit Lions, and how do we do that throughout the game? And that's what's going to be the major difference of how Ben Johnson kind of goes around this thing because at this point in time, he's getting out coached. It's coming out as Goff looks bad, St. Brown looks bad, Laporta looks bad. All those guys that go to the middle, they look bad. The only person that's looked good is JMO, and that's because Goff has hit JMO for some deep passes. But when the deep passes aren't there, what are you going to do? Nothing. You're not going to do nothing. So that's what I look at. Again, the Lions lose this game, and they really shouldn't have lost this game if you're going to be completely honest with yourself. They outgained the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 463 to 216. Both had 11 drives. Detroit had 83 plays. The Buccaneers had 47 plays, and they were just more efficient. And the more efficient team usually wins in the NFL. That's usually the way that goes. If you're efficient with the way that you call the game, you're efficient on offense, you're going to win a lot of football games. And last year, the Lions were efficient, and this year I haven't seen them be efficient with the ball. That's the clear difference in this team right now. Like I want to say that I hope there's good things to come, but the way that they're playing right now, if this is what they do throughout the next 2 games, they're going to lose those 2 games too. Because the Cardinals coming in, I mean, you go into Arizona, it's never been tough. It's never been easy for the Lions to go to Arizona and win that game. It just hasn't. Even when the Lions were good, they never went into Arizona and was like, yeah, we're going to go win this game. The Seattle Seahawks, for some reason, they have the Detroit Lions number, and they're playing pretty good ball too. They won today. They won last week. They're 2-0. You're 1-1. So you can't take them for granted either. Mike McDonald's doing a really good job. They're holding teams close, and they got the talent to succeed. So this is going to be an interesting time for Lions because it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things. And it's not just Goff. It's not just the offensive line. It's not just, the wide receivers like Sam Laporta, the receivers like Sam Laporta and St. Brown, or the third wide receiver. The offensive play calling in the red zone isn't good. And when you talk about being efficient on offense, the Lions are not efficient on offense. Last week, they were one of the more efficient teams in the NFL. And this year, they're not even close to that. So it's going to be interesting to see the advanced stats that come out of today's game. Obviously, we'll go over that in the podcast in the middle of the week, which you will talk about. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And there's a lot of ways that this can go about. There's just. I mean, I'm very interested to see the advanced stats. Who is one of the worst graded players? Who is the best graded players? Because, like I said last week, I was surprised by some of the advanced stats that showed that it wasn't really an issue with the Goff holding onto the ball. It was the offensive line allowing pressure. We got some 2 comments we're gonna get to. Kevin D. Lewis says Goff has limitations and defensive coordinators are taking advantage. Plus, Ben Johnson sucks and does not make adjustments. Don't disagree with you there. I think Goff. Every quarterback has limitations. Every quarterback has limitations. Let's put it that way. It's what you do to give your quarterback the best chance to succeed. And so far this year, Ben Johnson has not done that. And you're right. Ben Johnson has not made adjustments, and he needs to start making adjustments, or this is going to be a long year. Derek Dennis says, no excuses. They were a hurt team, and we look like shit. Unprepared, outcoached, and outgritted. I completely agree with you. They were outcoached every point of the way. I think defensively, the Lions showed up. They played pretty damn good. But offensively, they were outcoached. Special teams, they were outcoached. They were more prepared. They definitely outgritted the Detroit Lions. Today wasn't a Lions team I'm used to under Dan Campbell. I'm not used to a team being outcoached, outgritted, like Dennis said, and outmatched. And I thought if you go by the yardage, Detroit outmatched them. But the reality of the situation is it's not how you do the yards. The yards don't really matter if you don't put points on the board. And they didn't put points on the board. They were 1 for 7 in the red zone, and you're not going to win in many games today. And, that's the way it goes. And so we could sit here all day long and talk about Goff. We could talk about Ben Johnson. But the fact of the matter is, when the game was down to the wire, they were passing in the middle of the field. That pass to JMO, thank God it was tipped away, or that would have been the game. Like, why don't you go to the end zone? It's play calling, it's Goff, it's the offensive line, because the offensive line wasn't giving him any good time, and the coaching in the red zone was putrid. So that's how you lost. That's why you lost. Period. When you outgain a team 463 to 216, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You should win that game. Yards per play. Detroit had 5.6. The Buccaneers had 4.6. Like, every step of the way, the Lions outgained them. But when they got down to the red zone, the Detroit Lions were a sieve. They were outcoached. Todd Bowles coached circles around Ben Johnson. And, Ben Johnson, I hate to say it, but the last 2 weeks, he's looked really, really shitty. And last week against the Rams, that was a guy who was a new defensive coordinator. Now you're going to go against Jonathan Gannon of the Arizona Cardinals. He puts together some really difficult defensive assignments. And if you're not going to outcoach him, he will outcoach you. That's what happens. Look what he's doing to the Rams today. Look what he's doing to the Rams today. They have 3 points. I'm trying to check. The score is still the Rams score. It's 34-3. 34-10. That's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. You play like this next week, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Period. Kevin says the defense shined today, which they did, and he says exactly. We do not accept the challenge downfield enough. All we do is routes across the middle. Look, we could talk about the routes up the middle. We could talk about the routes to the outside. It just feels like they're easy to play against. Like, it feels like, just put it this way. If you're a coach and all they're doing is going up the middle, you're going to have an easier time defending them compared to if they're going out the side, they have a back coming out of the side. Like, if you have them all going up the middle, well, let's clog the middle and let them take shots deep. Because besides JMO, who's going to be that deep shot that they're going to take to? We know St. Brown isn't a guy that goes deep a lot. We know Laporta is not a guy that goes deep a lot. I would love to see it mixed up into some of Ben Johnson's play call. But that's just not what they do. So, very interesting game. It's a joke that the way that they're playing right now. Like I said, when you're 3 for 11 in the red zone in 2024, that's an issue. And red zone offense is a huge issue, and it was an issue early in the season for the Lions last year, and they finally got it corrected. But it was, it could have cost them time. It cost them too much. I think they had 2 or 3 losses by the time they fully corrected the offense. This time around, it's the same thing. They're dealing with the same thing. And I look at the coaches that they're going against in the next 2 games. And I look at the way their teams are playing. I look at the way the Cardinals play. They're coached tremendously on defense. Tremendously. They're not talented, but they out-scheme the hell out of you. Ask the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills had an issue with them yesterday. Look at the way the Seahawks are playing. I know they played the Broncos and the Patriots, but they're holding teams under 21 points, man. That's what they're doing. So those are 2 defensive coaches. And Ben Johnson's going to either sink or swim right here, because you look at the 2 defensive coaches coming up on the road for one, at home with another. It must be better. You must start scheming up players, because right now this offense looks like ass. And it's not just Jared Goff. It's not just the offensive line. It's the coach too. You can't be 1 for 7 in the red zone and say it's the quarterback or the offensive line. It's a mixture of all of them. Because to be that bad in the red zone, it's not just one person. It's not just 2 people. It's not just 3 people. It's the 11-man group plus the offensive coaches. That's what it goes down to. we have a scheme. We have to scheme open. Goff is not a good deep ball thrower. This look him. The one play of the game that Jameson Williams he threw the Jameson Williams, that was a great ball. Totally a great ball. So Goff can throw long. The issue is that was the only deep shot they took. Like, do you see what I'm trying to point at? Like, yes, Goff is not this. You don't have the arm of Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but not many people do. And I look at it like this: you got to take shots deep sometimes, and when you got a running game like the Detroit Lions have, you can do play action, and you're going to get people open. And they have not done. They have not used play action to their advantage. They've been going out there thinking that they've been going out there thinking like they're like a spread offense that's like in college is broken. Like that's what they're doing, and it's not good enough. It's simply not good enough. But yeah, I don't know. The Lions, they have a lot to work on, especially if they want to win next week. Because you go to Arizona, that's a tough game, man. That is a tough game. I don't care who you are. That's gonna be a tough game at Arizona. So we'll see you for the midweek podcast. We'll have usually a podcast every post game on the Detroit Lions News podcast. So thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for the comments. And if you miss any portion of it, you can go here. You can go here to pull it up. You can scan the barcode and you can go to any of where our podcasts are. It'll be uploaded probably in the next hour. We'll post it and then we'll post it on the page. So if you missed any portion of the podcast today, you can go back and you can listen to it. We will have some main event will be on tomorrow. Russell Wayne will be on tomorrow. They'll be talking about the game tomorrow. So stay tuned to that. But thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, Joe Chep. I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.